Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Dr. Clayton Miller. I'm from the National University of Singapore, and I'm going to give a presentation about the Great Energy Predictor 3 competition that was hosted last October through December of 2019. This is a follow-up from a presentation that I gave at the winter meeting in Orlando earlier this year, which is really a deeper dive into the winners, the winning solutions, more detailed information about some of the process of converting this competition into valuable content for ASHRAE members. So first off, the learning objectives, you can read the general ones, really focused on the Energy Predictor 3 competition itself. And then for this specific presentation, I'm going to give the high-level overview. And this is the first of 4 presentations, the other 3 presentations being from the top 3 winners, actually diving really further deeper into the details of the competition from the perspective of the top 3 contestants who won the competition alongside their teams in some cases. So I'm going to basically set the context for this series or this seminar of presentations. Acknowledgements for this competition are quite long. There was quite a few people that were integral to the launch of this competition. You can see Chris Balbach, Christian Gowrie, Sammy Arjunan, Jeff Haberl, and Anthony Fontanini, really people from the ASHRAE community that helped us organize. There's a lot of people from the technical committee, Chun Fu, Bianca Pinchetti, John Roth, June Park, Zelton Nagy, and the list goes on. A lot of the list, names towards the end of the list are actually people from data donors. So we really wanted to give very strong acknowledgement to the fact that it took a village to really get this competition launched. Financial support was provided by various sources, including the National Research Foundation of Singapore and the Berkeley Education Alliance for Research in Singapore, or BEARS, in the SimberBest lab. So those of you that are unfamiliar with the competition, let me give you a quick crash course in the objective of the competition. It was a machine learning, long-term energy prediction context focused on applications related to measurement and verification. And this is a very common graphic you can see here from the IPMVP and also which is based on the ASHRAE Standard 14, which gives the foundation of this type of prediction or machine learning models, where you are implementing some sort of energy saving measure or retrofit at some point, and you need to create a model to predict what would have happened if you had not implemented that energy saving or energy conservation measure. And the energy savings can be calculated as the delta between this adjusted baseline energy and the reported measured energy for that implementation. So it's really not what we would call forecasting. It is prediction, but it's usually prediction that's done retroactively, where you're predicting what would have happened and you're comparing it to what actually did happen. And this is often done with monthly data or even daily data. However, in this competition, we decided to do it with hourly data in order to increase the complexity and maybe the challenge of the competition itself. So the objective, really what the contestants were given were what you see here in blue, which are the hourly meter data from a number of buildings, which I'll talk about how many buildings and how much data here in a second. They were given hourly weather data from the entire 3-year period. This is a 3-year period, 2016 to 2018. Contestants were asked to submit data from the last 2 years, 2017 and 2018. So training models using the first year plus the weather data that was provided to create various features and then predict the final 2 years. So the contestants weren't told what these final 2 years of test data actually entailed. They did know that there was what was called a public and private leaderboards. But you can see here that the second year was really what we call the validation or public leaderboard test data set. So during the competition, which I'll talk about in a second, they would submit their predictions and they could actually see the score that was calculated based on this second year of data. The third year of data, 2018, was actually divided into 2 parts, the one part being what we called secure or non-public data sources, and the other one actually came from public data sources. So there was a certain percentage of the buildings that actually come from online sources that are freely available and downloadable. This decision was made to make the data set as large as possible. We knew people would probably find some of these buildings and these data sources, which they definitely did. But the 2018 data set was divided into a data set which is completely non-public and very private, which was used to actually predict the winners. The fact that there was public data was, like I said, a decision that was made, and it was something that was frustrating for some of the participants because their public test or public leaderboard scores could suffer if they didn't keep track of the public sources. And the public sources were being disclosed very quickly as soon as they were found, usually, or on the discussion board of the competition, which allowed everyone to have access to it, but at the same time, it was a little bit frustrating for people. But at the end of the day, we did a good job of keeping that final final evaluation score high integrity for the competition. So a little bit about the meters. Contestants were provided 2 years of data from 20 million points from 2,380 meters total. These meters were from 1,448 buildings across the world. A majority of the data were from electricity meters. Almost 60% were electricity meters. Chilled water, steam, and hot water made up 20, 13, and 6.3% roughly. And a majority of the buildings were actually from educational buildings. Or not a majority, but that was the largest the type of building used with the largest representation. A lot of these buildings were actually from university campuses from around North America and Europe. And so therefore the data set was a little bit biased in that direction, or very biased in some ways. But university campuses are quite good data sources in a lot of ways because there is such a huge diversity of space use types on a university campus. So I'll talk a little bit about the generalizability of the competition towards the end. So there was actually 16 data sites, 1,448 buildings across 16 sites from North America, United Kingdom, and Ireland. You can see that some of the data sources were more prominent than others. And a lot of these locations were from the East Coast, the Eastern time zone of the United States, Central, Mountain, and then a little bit less from the West Coast and from Europe, both the UK and Ireland. And so I'll talk about this. A lot of this data set was made open, and I'll refer you to a publication where you can actually learn a lot more about these data sources. The competition timeline was 3 months. It was launched in October 15, 2019 and finished in December 19th. And there was a preliminary deadline within that time range, which was about a week before the presentation was, or the competition was concluded. And that's where the contestants had to accept the rules and join teams. And they could join teams. In fact, there was 3,614 teams, but there was over 4,000 participants. So the process of the competition was that you would download the training data set, both weather and energy. You would create your machine learning workflow, your prediction process, make that prediction, and then you would upload that prediction, that actual target objective prediction of those 2 years of energy data. You would upload them to the platform, and you would instantaneously get a score on what was called the public leaderboard, which of course was the 2017 data. And this score was calculated through a root mean square logarithmic error, which was the metric, which was chosen because it's fairly common. It's quite simple in a lot of ways, and the logarithmic component of it allows buildings, small buildings and big buildings, to have roughly the same impact on the final score, as opposed to having a larger impact for larger consuming buildings. So the public leaderboard reflected the standing of the contestants and teams during the competition. And then at the conclusion of the competition, there was a final private leaderboard, which is calculated using a lot of the buildings from that 2018 data set, the ones that are completely private. And this was the score that actually you would win the competition based on. So in terms of participants, the competition had, like I said, 4,370 participants split across 3,614 teams. Each team had the ability to upload a prediction at maximum twice per day. We ended up with close to 40,000 predictions from these teams. And a majority of the teams came from Japan, United States, India, China, and Russia. These are participants that we found their location on their actual profiles, and about 60% of the contestants actually had a location posted. And you can see that spread across the world, but you can also see that there was 94 countries represented beyond just those larger countries with more participants. So you had representation from Africa, South America, Oceania, all over the entire world was represented in this competition. And this visualization shows that a majority of the participants were actually what was called the novice level. And Kaggle, which is the platform we hosted this competition on, has 5 different levels: novice, contributor, expert, master, and grandmaster. You achieve each of these levels through participating in multiple competitions, by winning, by placing high, by getting medals. We thought it was very interesting that a lot of people in this competition were novices, maybe some of those being ASHRAE members, people who are just learning machine learning. You can see the number of previous competitions that each of these people actually participated in, with grandmasters in some cases, participating in 100+ previous competitions. So you can see that novices obviously have the lowest amount of experience, and then grandmasters have the most, and then you have a gradient in between. And these are distributions of all of those participants and their experiences. The score in our competition, in the Great Energy Predictor 3 competition, you can see as the lower the score, the better. The lower the score meaning the less error you have in your predictions as compared to the ground truth. There was a pretty strong correlation to experience as compared to their scores. So there was obviously a higher level of expertise with the higher levels of experience. So we announced the winning teams in the January meeting. However, we were able since January to really get a lot more information from these contestants. And of course, the top 3 teams, I'm definitely not going to talk about in this presentation because they are a member from each of these winning teams in the top 3. Matt Mataki, Rohan Rao, and Xavier Capdepon they will be presenting in the upcoming 3 sessions in this seminar to give much more detail about their process. Groups 4 and 5 were included a single student from Chengdu, China, and a team of 3 students from Japan. And so you'll learn a little bit more about the top 3 teams in more detail, but you can also learn about the last couple teams in a couple upcoming publications, which I'll refer to in a second. So the winning solutions are now completely open source. They're on a online repository with an MIT open source license. You can reproduce them. There are overview videos of the solution from the winning team. There are notes, there are instructions on how to reproduce these solutions. There is an entire wiki page which really gives you a step-by-step overview of the solutions and how long they take to run based on certain infrastructure. So just a heads up that a lot of these top solutions are very complex, and that's something that you're going to learn in the upcoming 3 videos. This is something that I've asked the winners to actually give an understanding of how to make these solutions less complex and yet still retain a majority of the accuracy of the model. So it's the accuracy versus complexity balance is something that's also addressed, should be addressed in the upcoming videos, and that's something that we're going to work on in terms of converting these solutions into something that are more applicable to everyday use. You may not need that extra tiny percentage of accuracy if it means running that solution for days on a huge computer with tons of RAM and GPUs and things like that. So this is something that we're in the process of trying to synthesize solutions from these winning models. So beyond the top 5, the platform also awards medals. So if you are in the top 0.2%, you get gold, top 5% silver, top 10% bronze. Here you can see there was a breakdown. Experts and grandmasters and masters are, of course, achieving more, but we did have quite a few medal winners and even a novice winner with a gold medal in this competition. So I'd like to think that there are some new users of the platform that participated in this competition that potentially were ASHRAE members, and so hopefully there's this mixing or this mingling of these 2 communities, the data science and the building science communities. Beyond the top 5 winners, once again, they're on the platform, the machine learning platform we used. People were allowed to create their own analyses called notebooks. And these notebooks could be anything from a full solution to simply exploring the data, visualizing it. And these notebooks are voted on, so you can see the top voted solution or notebooks here, the top one being a gentle introduction, meaning a good starting point for a beginner to learn these data sets and learn how this process works. So there's over 400 of these machine learning notebooks which are on the platform, which we are processing and analyzing and looking for value within. And if you break down the attributes of these public notebooks, you can see that a majority of them were done in Python. Python is a very common programming language for data science. R was second place. R is also very powerful, but we saw a huge prominence of using Python. Something you're going to notice when you watch the upcoming videos probably is the models that the winners really focused on were tree-based, decision tree-based models, which was fascinating. I mean, who would have thought that deep learning and maybe some of these more fancy models would compete better? But it turns out at the end of the day, gradient boosted tree models, and various flavors of gradient boosting models were most popular. You look at the breakdown in the lower left-hand corner of the different types of notebooks. So starter code, beginner code, data visualization, EDA, which is exploratory data analysis. These are the top types of categories of these notebooks. So there's really a good opportunity for people, especially ASHRAE members, who are interested in learning how to code or to learn data science, to use these notebooks to learn. And pre-processing ended up being, in terms of the type of solution, ended up being a very prominent one. So it really showed that pre-processing was a very important element in winning this competition. So these 400 plus notebooks, we've created kind of a directory, an initial directory of the notebooks and how you can use them. So I would highly recommend people who are interested to visit the competition website to look at these places where the data is curated and the solutions are curated to learn more. That's really what we're looking at. And then finally, the 2016 data, which was the training data, is already available. However, we've also released the 2017 data, which I mentioned was the public leaderboard data. So 2 full years of hourly data has been released from this competition, and it is in its own online repository where you can download it. And once again, I mean, this is really for people who want to build upon the solutions of the competition, who want to do research, who want to create, to have a test data set for various types of applications. Please feel free to use this data set. Please add to it. Please you can be a part of this movement of opening data in this community and allowing people to learn from it and to create methods on top of it. There is a part of this open data repository is a publication which is now pre-printed online. You can find it online when you go to this repository, and it has a very detailed overview of the data sources, how the data was cleaned, how it was processed, the differences between the competition data set and our ultimate open data set. We've made a few changes. There was a few mistakes we made before the competition, including conversion of units and shifting of timestamps and things. So we polished the data set quite a bit. There is a data set of 2017 data from the Great Energy Predictor 3 competition as well, so that you don't have to reverse engineer those changes to use the data set and to actually use it back on the platform and to compare it to the data that's already on the machine learning platform. So please take advantage of this data set. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into creating it, and it's a great resource for the community. So, conclusion, it was the largest, I would say the largest and most diverse ASHRAE competition ever held, and from what I can tell in terms of number of people from around the world. However, the total investment from the ASHRAE organization was only the $25,000 US prize money. So in terms of the output and the amount of information and data and exposure and the convergence and cooperation between data science and building science communities, we really believe that it was a bargain, a value, and it was really a success. It wasn't perfect. There were hiccups and problems. There were frustrations by some of the contestants because of some of the decisions we made. But we think it's a great starting point. We think that there's a lot to learn from it, and we really hope that we can host another Predictor competition, Predictor Competition 4, which is in the process of being organized, this time focused on time series classification. So finding and classifying and tagging data, which is really something that's a huge issue in the building management system domain, making data more accessible by semantically modeling in an automated way, making it more accessible and affordable. So this is something we're working closely with SPCC 135 for the BACnet committee and TC 4.7. Please get involved. Please join those committee meetings if you're interested, and please reach out to us if you're interested. So here's finally my references. And of course, you can reach out to me by email with any questions. And I'd like to just give a shout out to some of the co-creators of the visualizations of this presentation. Thank you so much for your time, and please make sure you join our Q&A session where you can ask me questions as well as the members from the top 3 winning teams. Thank you very much.